This is the ZMAR Podcast. Elite Benefits of America helps small and mid-sized companies with their health insurance programs. And now, your host, Butch ZMAR.
Welcome back to the ZMAR Podcast. I have a very special guest today, Carrie Espinosa. She's a peer in our industry. We share space on an industry board, and we have a lot of collaboration, not only from a board perspective, industry perspective, but small business advocacy. We toss ideas back and forth, but I'm pretty excited to have you on the show, Carrie. Welcome.
Thank you, Butch, for the opportunity to be here today.
Can you give our audience a little bit of background on who Carrie is and a little bit about Horizon and what you guys do over there?
Yeah, so my name is Carrie Espinosa. I own Horizon Benefit Services. I've been in the insurance industry since 2003. Started helping folks with their Medicare insurance in 2008. Prior to that, we did employee benefits, evolved into the Medicare arena, and then also the Affordable Care Act. We're a hire-to-retire solution, and I live in Lake County, Illinois, with my husband and two boys, and spend a lot of time with my grandma.
Awesome. I think we've been in the industry about equal number of years. You could probably attest to the amount of changes that have occurred in the last almost 20 years that we've been both in the business.
Change is the only constant in what we do, isn't it, Butch?
100%. And one of those changes, right, we're leading into the Medicare open enrollment. And I know we were going to talk a little bit about the Inflation Reduction Act, a little bit related to Medicare. What are some highlights that you took out from the law? I know you participate in a lot of ledge updates for our local chapter, but what have you picked up so far as this related to Medicare and your clients?
Yeah, so specifically related to healthcare, the Inflation Reduction Act has some major implications. Let me just say first, too, that this started as the $3.5 trillion Build Back Better bill, and Democrat Sinema and Manchin were sort of the holdouts. It did wind up getting through the Senate as the Inflation Reduction Act and a $430 billion bill. Passed the Senate, passed the House, and then was signed into law by the President on August 16th. What it does specifically in regards to Medicare is it allows the federal government to negotiate some of the highest spending drugs covered under Medicare. So currently, the non-interference clause of 2003 prevents that negotiation. The CBO has not released the final estimates, but as of mid-July, it's estimated to save about $100 billion for Medicare beneficiaries between 2026 and 2031. It's also important to note that it requires drug companies to pay rebates if drug prices rise faster than inflation for prescriptions used specifically by Medicare beneficiaries. Only certain drugs are going to qualify. The high-spending brand drugs and biologics without generic or biosimilar equivalents are what they're targeting. And they generally must be on the market for 9 or 13 years, depending on which category of drug they are. In September 2023, we'll know which drugs are selected for that negotiation. A couple other impacts: a $2,000 cap on Medicare Part C out-of-pocket spending in 2025. It's going to limit monthly cost sharing for insulin products to $35 for Medicare beneficiaries, which, the prior administration also did under the Senior Savings Act. It eliminates cost sharing for adult vaccines covered under Medicare Part D. Many vaccines are already covered under Medicare. However, the shingles vaccine is a big one that isn't, and a big surprise for folks. So that will be one of the new vaccines covered. And then it also delays implementation of the Trump administration's rebate rule.
Quite a list. I appreciate you being a little prepared for that one. But one of the biggest things I know I got a phone call on, and I don't know if you received any phone calls, but literally less than 24 hours, and it was over the weekend, I think it was a Sunday, I got several phone calls because of the new cap on the diabetes medications. And they were like, when does it start? And I was like, wow, it just passed. I haven't read the details, but let me get back to you. And obviously the next business day, I was able to track it down that we're going to start seeing, like you had said, start seeing some of those prescription savings in the 2023 upcoming open enrollment and renewals.
We will. Now, keep in mind, under the prior administration, too, there was the Senior Savings Act and the insulin benefits, right? Not all carriers participated and not all plans participated. So I think the big no for consumers, or what they want to know, is, does this apply across the board? Is it only going to apply to certain insulins, all insulins? We went into, you probably do as well, but, like it'll cover Lantus, but Ozempic might not be covered, right? So, yeah, I think a lot of times with the government legislatively, what they intend and how things are implemented can be a little bit different. So we will need to pay close attention to how this rolls out.
Obviously, we're coming up on the open enrollment for the senior markets. It starts, technically it starts October 1st for some window shopping. October 15th, you could start picking plans, and it runs through December 7th. But I know you're a lot more involved in the Medicare world than I am, but are you seeing anything yet in the 2023 market that maybe some of the listeners here that might be shopping for the Medicare, or maybe some employers that have some older, wiser employees that may be looking at the option of moving on Medicare? Is there some things that already popped to mind as you started reviewing some of the 2023 material?
Yeah, so I see continued increased opportunities for beneficiaries to participate in Medicare Advantage plans. It looks like there's going to be more plans than even in the year prior, and some enhancements to the current plans. For folks who are on Medicare supplement plans, or employees who are on MedSup, and they have a standalone drug plan, they're going to want to pay very, very close attention to whether or not their drug plan is going to be available as it is now in 2023. Sometimes insurance companies retire their current drug plan and introduce new plans for the upcoming year. And nobody wants to be stuck in that gotcha position where the carrier, they call it crosswalks you over to the plan, not necessarily that meets the same price point as what you're paying now, but a similar formulary. So, you've seen this. Plans go from $14 to $60. That's a big gotcha that consumers really want to pay attention to.
For sure. And most of the, or all of the current insurance companies, if they're currently enrolled in a program, in September, they should be receiving their renewal packet in the mail, and it should list out their drug costs, that they could start doing some preliminary work and see where some of that is. And then, of course, the premium increases. You don't really want to ghost the renewal because I'm sure you got those phone calls too. January comes and they're 2 weeks into January and they're like, hey, I just noticed my checking account was charged more than I was last year.
Yeah, that's never a pleasant call for us, and it's never a pleasant surprise for the consumer, right?
Right, exactly.
The insurance companies will soon be sending out their annual notice of change. It's called an ANOC, and consumers absolutely want to pay attention to that and see, is their plan changing dramatically? How are the formulary changes going to affect them, right? And then from the employer perspective, too, this is also a very busy season. You know this, Butch, from all of your employers getting ready to renew. Employers want to be really thoughtful about their Medicare population and how they have their contribution set, and whether it makes sense to bring in a resource to talk to employees about Medicare and make that an option alongside of the employee benefit package.
And Carrie, I appreciate your time. Carrie is obviously in the employee benefits and Medicare space, and there's a lot of things that go involved with what we do. And so just a small discussion, like every year we have to go through some element of training to get recertified for all this stuff. And that's one reason why we stay up to speed on all that things. Sure, we're involved in a local industry chapter, and it forces us to stay updated because we rub elbows with those people in that group. But for our own client base, and there's a lot of stuff that we have to go through. There's testing we have to go involve, and not every broker does this. And so one thing I wanted just to point out, and you can provide some comments on it, is that not every broker goes through this training for the Medicare planning and making sure they're up to speed. It separates the competition a little bit, but these are some of the things that I think consumers need to look out for when it comes to Medicare planning.
Oh, absolutely. Actually, early on in my Medicare experience, I kind of questioned myself whether or not it made sense to go through all of the certification, all of the training to be able to help Medicare beneficiaries, because to your point, Butch, it's a bit overwhelming. So, we get through our AHIP, and then we do our carrier training, and then we have to do all of the rollouts. But as well as I do, Medicare actually drives a lot of the healthcare system and health insurance system. So the more we can know about that, the better we can serve our clients. When consumers are shopping Medicare brokers, they do definitely want to ask, how long have you been certified? What carriers do you represent? What products do you recommend? A good broker, this, Butch, because you and I operate very similarly, isn't going to say, I recommend one thing over the other until we understand what the client's need is.
100%. And you bring up a good point, because I know some even benefits agents or even our counterparts in the property and casualty world that sell auto, home, and business insurance, where they'll sell Medicare products, but then they limit themselves. They either don't do the test and tell them to just go get your prescription drug on your own. But one thing you had pointed out that I think is very valid of asking the question, how many insurance companies are they appointed with to sell Part D or the Medicare Advantage plans? We can't get contracted with every carrier. A couple of reasons. One is we have limited time and capacity to do all the training because each one requires it. The other reason is some of them don't pay any commissions to or any fees to the broker. And so there's little skin in the game for us because we're not making anything. But you bring up a point, because some of them just go out and they just do one carrier, and most of the beneficiaries that work with them are not aware of it until they ask.
That's absolutely right, Butch. And, my insurance career actually started with a multi-line carrier where we sold auto, home, life, health, business. And you can't be, at least for me, I didn't want to be a jack of all trades and a master of none. When you get behind the scenes into the Medicare arena, as you and I do, my goodness, the devil's in the details, and knowing the difference between plans and understanding the nuances really helps us better serve our customers.
And so one of the thoughts that was coming to mind when you were saying that is there's so many nuances with all these insurance companies. And even with us, as we try to educate ourselves to make it better for the client experience, to make sure they're in a good spot and their exact situation, like you said, that we kind of get a big picture of what their current situation, and the situation is the boss. Not everybody's going to be the same, but having access to resources. So like in certain situations, and you probably run across this, where we have broker tools to shop for the prescription drug or the Medicare Advantage, and something just doesn't stick, like something standing out that it just doesn't look right. Well, because we're resourceful, we have contacts. We go through, maybe we call them general agencies. I usually tell our clients they're like wholesalers, but we call them and, what's going on with this one prescription drug? And they'll probably give us some insight on what's going on, maybe a price change, or maybe a different product might be better, and then give us some feedback on that.
You're right. It's a very intuitive process, right? So yes, the data definitely tells the story, but there's also a level of experience and intuition that allows brokers like you and I to say, hold on a minute, is that right? And I so appreciate you always being available for a phone call when I come across something like that and saying, hey, Butch, does this look right? And we kind of dive into it together. Know that, while we're both in the same space, we do similar things. Having that friendship and that camaraderie really helps me be a better broker. So thank you. I appreciate you.
If you own a business, Elite Benefits of America wants to remind you that health insurance open enrollments are either happening now or coming very quickly. And this is the time to review and implement a healthcare plan to make or keep you as the employer of choice. Deadlines for open enrollment range between November 1st and January 1st. Get ahead of the curve. The Small Business Special Enrollment Period, part of the Affordable Care Act, now allows employers with 49 employees and under to offer health benefits without contributing a dime to the employee plan. Help your employees save money on taxes with health insurance they're already paying for with their hard-earned dollars. Butch Zemar from Elite Benefits of America wants you to reach out to him today. Visit elitebenefits.net or call 708-535-3006.
Fourth quarter is coming up, which is our busiest time, not only because of the Medicare open enrollments, we have the under 65, and then we also have the small group open enrollments. Obviously, we're getting renewals throughout the year. Even some of the fully insured markets, we're seeing between 8% and maybe 15%. But some of the things that we walk them through is kind of like, just kind of see where they're at, what their game plans, what their goals are, see where they're headed in 2023. And what I'm finding is that some of the smaller employers we're talking to are just want everything to kind of stay low. They don't want any more changes because of all the things that's happened in the last couple of years. What are you starting to see as we move into? I think we just got November renewals. We're working on December's, and so here we go for busy times.
Yeah, well, and you and I chat about this a lot, right? So BUCA, Blue Cross, United Healthcare, Cigna, Humana, Aetna, they sort of control the fully insured space, especially in the small group market. The price is what drives the satisfaction and the amount of the renewal increase. That's where our focus and your focus on the level funding and finding alternative solutions that can really put the customer, the employer, back in control of their healthcare spend and how their employees use their healthcare is really going to be instrumental. I'm expecting, and I don't know this, but just, based on Carrie's basic knowledge in economics, we didn't get, to your point, 8 to 15% increases this year. They weren't extraordinary. There was also a lot of delayed care still in 2020, right? 2021, I mean, because of COVID. So that's where we're getting the 2022 renewals. Now, this last year, there were a lot of elective surgeries that were put on hold that have now been completed. It's going to be interesting to see how the rates come out, since there was so much pent-up demand that was probably satisfied this last year.
Now they're seeing opportunity. This is like the first full year of less regulation, so to speak. So there's a little bit more freedom. And then some people are saying, hey, maybe I should get this checked out because, I put it off too long and now it's really starting to bother me. Yeah, we're seeing some of that too. And the other thing I always point out when some people complain, they're like, wow, 10% or 15%. But they also have to realize their entire employee base actually just went up by 1 year. And so everybody got older, so the premium goes up. I always say because they're worth more, but you figure a 10% increase because they're 1 year older isn't terrible because there's higher risk at a certain point. So, but as a small business, sometimes it's hard to chew because they're trying to keep expenses low and they're still trying to do what the whole reason they got into business.
Right. Well, and you know this as well as I do, Butch. Why is health insurance expensive? Because healthcare is expensive, right? So it's like when you go buy a gallon of milk and the cost goes from, 2 for $4 to 2 for $5. Yeah, we complain about that and it doesn't make us happy. And when we go get a box of cereal, we don't even notice the increase because the box got a little bit smaller. The price didn't necessarily go up. But in healthcare, there's not the same cost controls. And we're going to see healthcare costs go up in the current environment just to satisfy, increasing electric costs for the doctors, right? The hospitals, their heat bills are going up, their electricity. Everything's got to keep pace. And I think sometimes as consumers, right? So let's take you and I out of our broker role. And just as consumers, it just feels like everything's going up. But there's things that we can do to manage that to make it less impactful, especially in the healthcare space.
I know one thing that we started out saying about how much change we have gone through, but our role as a broker has changed throughout the years, and we discuss this all the time. Like we become like this concierge service for clients, and our compensation really doesn't go up in the meantime as well, but our role has changed, right? So we went from brokers of just placing insurance products to being an advocate for them, and it could be as an employee having a claim issue, it could be trying to reduce costs in their healthcare spend, it could be wellness programs or other HR related stuff, and so our role is definitely changing to the degree where we got to keep up to speed and help these clients even more.
Well, and to your point a few minutes ago, right, about Medicare, not all brokers are created equal. That's true in this employer space, too. And while you and I have looked at the employers and said, how can we serve you and what do you need help with? And we've stepped outside of just let me help you buy insurance, right? Yes, we're definitely helping them with their HR needs. We're definitely helping them with their other needs. I had one of my group clients pushed back on me last month. We went through the renewal, and she said, I'm expecting more out of my supplier relationships as my business grows. And I said, well, that's great. I want to provide you with more. However, in a 5-life group, I can't schedule 3 open enrollment meetings or even 2 open enrollment meetings. We've got to kind of keep it to an efficient point for both of us. Because to your point, Butch, if it's a fully insured Affordable Care Act plan, we've not gotten an increase in our commission since 2014, right? It's 2022. We're doing more for less, and you and I are trying to make the best of it and stretch that, but we also have to look at how do we continue to provide that level of service that our clients are accustomed to and stay in business, right? So
100%. And I know we recently went back and forth on this because you talk about streamlining, but we had to start pointing out what the employer's responsibilities, because there was a lot of things that we were taking on, and I'm sure you could vouch for this too, where we're taking on trying to do it, but to make our job easier, they still had to do their part of it. We made it too easy for them for a little while, but you're right, we have to start streamlining and providing a level of service, and then obviously transparency. And so one thing I like about commission disclosures that was, we all had to start doing since December last year was when we disclose these commissions, and then if you had discussions with the employer about it, all of a sudden they're completely shocked at how little we're paid.
Yeah, isn't that a surprise?
Totally. Yeah. They're like, what? That's all you're getting paid? I'm like, yeah, should I balance bill you for this year?
Right.
Yeah, it usually starts at least some humor into it. But as our roles are evolving, we are moving to, and we have to go to more fee-based, right? Because we can't provide some limited HR support or concierge service or benefit administration system or even like a beck and call service kind of deal with some of these employers, because they're growing and expanding so fast that they need our cell phones just in case we need immediate action. And so, but that's going to come with a cost at some point, but that's what the transparency is, and so that they know exactly what's going on.
Yeah, and I think this is something you and I continue to try to refine how to do this, right? Because we're not trying to take advantage of anybody, but we're also trying to make sure that we're able to keep our lights on and pay our heat bills and serve our clients with a high level of care and attention. And definitely, as insurance companies consolidate their customer service teams, and we have less support from the insurance companies, but we're providing more support to the client. It really puts things out of balance, and we've got to work smarter, not harder.
For sure. And we have a right to grow just like our clients do, right? So as we expand and evolve our practice, we have payroll to worry about, payroll taxes, overhead, some more licenses and whatnot. And speaking of growth, can you share a little bit of the excitement that Horizon has had in the last, I think it's 30 days. It might be even longer than that now that you guys moved to a new location and you guys are expanding yourself.
Yeah, so, we've just been blessed beyond measure. So we moved from our office in Waukegan to an office condo in Gurnee with some great signage on Grand Avenue. Kristen is my right hand. I've got Vanessa, who is my left hand. And we are now adding another person to our team as well, starting Monday, through the program of workforce development, which you and I, talked about a little bit. But here's the thing, and you and I are of the same mindset, right? We're better together, and we're better when we have people contributing to the cause and making a difference, not just for our agencies, but for our clients, because, it matters.
And congratulations on that success of growing. And for those who are listening to our podcast, Carrie, can you provide your contact information if they want to expand the conversations we had here, or if somebody needs to reach out and need some assistance based on some of the topics we discussed? How do they get in touch with you?
My phone number is 847-746-6115. We live answer whenever possible. If everybody's on other lines, we can't, but we'll call you back same day. Our address is 5445 Grand Avenue, suite number 207 in Gurnee, 60031. And our website is Horizon Benefit Services. Benefits is singular, services is plural.com. So if you have friends without benefits, we can help with that.
Sounds good. Hey, Carrie, I appreciate your time this morning. I know it was a little bit early, but we'll have you back on and give some updates maybe after we push through the next 3 months during our busy season. So I appreciate you being on.
Well, I appreciate all that you do, Butch. And thanks for your friendship, and thank you for, being a trusted colleague.